Interesting concept, but to be clear, if there was a debate, which one is more detrimental to the household of the African American man and his image? Which one is more detrimental? It would be a debate between the black man who swirls or goes outside of his house, outside of his race to find himself mating and coupling, and then the only other argument, which one's more detrimental to the image or to the household, being the LGBTQ and their movement. So I'm finding myself having these conversations in rhetoric rather than being able to pull out the actual statistics. Which one is more detrimental? First, you would have to start with definitions. You start there just so that people aren't able to equivocate to the dumb, to the irrelevant, to the sidebar, to the fifis that they like to jump in. I would rather defend a Baldwin. I would definitely rather defend Baldwin than a Robert Smith. Why? Because Baldwin can have a significant impact despite his sexual orientation. And the one who couples with the white woman would determine that most of that billion, most of everything that he ever does and seeks to accomplish in this world will be to propagate and uplift the other community. And that is the biggest detriment. So, number one would be the economic argument when it comes to the defamation or the image of the black man being under assault, and by whom. That LGBTQ image is bad. That dating white women is bad. Both are bad. Which one are the most to the detriment, most detrimental? It would have to be what that white woman has done. Now, if you want to start going off of facts, man, there's no way around it. You're going to have to dig all the way back into them crates and archives histories. You could talk about today. Today is a relevant piece where you have, celebrities that people worship who have, tried to date interracially and things and move into that space and move like that. That's cool. Hit and miss. They getting it right, getting it wrong, but they're still falling under the same theme. Do they want to interracially date, and do they preserve that system more than they preserve the system of black man, black woman, same household? Why is that important, right? Because either can take you away from your actual premise. Your actual premise will be the strongest household that you can create. If the goal is to create a strong household, one that can defend and protect itself against the darts that are thrown at itself, I would tend to agree that it is the black man, black woman. This is where the debate loses people. The other alternative sexually deviant lifestyles are to go outside of that paradigm where 89% of the marriages that do happen anyway are between black man and black woman. And we can't drill down and see what would strengthen the relationships there between the black women and the black man and the black men. We have to deflect to these alternatives. That's what happens. They have to deflect to say, well, no, well, black men and the white woman, and then the gay man and the gay woman. That's where the deflections go. And so I don't know, man. This shit's gonna get crazy, man. I know I'm gonna get roasted for this because I did attend Morehouse College, so I guess I gotta fall on my sword. I have in myself learned to say, you know what, the LGBT community, they gonna do their own thing. And so I don't have that hatred and vitriol for the LGBT community. In fact, I don't got nearly as much smoke for the LGBT community as I have for the black men who decide to go out of their race and date. Now, you could have an LGBTQ that goes outside of their race and dates as well, and then they would still fall in the later half of where they got some smoke. But for me, I don't personally have that animus towards them. That's going against what the black church has told you to be right. That's going against what your grandma probably told you. I mean, but shit, who's listening to them two big influencers anyway anymore? I think for the most part, people are just listening to other spirits and other civilizations and their learnings in order to try to accept or to conform or to adopt a mannerism here in America. Now, what if I told you that the mannerism itself for both the LGBT community or that gay man syndrome going outside of the black man, black woman, in perpetuity of history is still a Greek and Roman philosophy. So you're in that same sense following that same trend. You're moving away from what is most natural and most organic for you, and where your seat of power is the most brilliant, the most shining, and you're moving towards an alternative lifestyle. It's sexual deviance, it's perversion, if you ask, on either end. Both of them don't align with what I believe in. But if you had to have the debate on which one is actually worse for the black male image, I would side on the side that says, you know what, the LGBT community, they gonna do their thing. What's worse and what has been worse for the African American man in America is that trying to get closer to white women argument, that miscegenation, the miscegenation laws that had to be enacted, the court cases, the love, the all of that as a system that perpetuates that distancing has been the most volatile. The idea that I would harp on for the duration of that debate is this image wise and the super predator that says that this sexually deviant African American man is now the equivalent of a domestic violence case. He's a rapist. He's going to do X, Y, Z in the third. That image that is correlated to the white woman was hell of a lot worse than seeing that happy-go-lucky guy on a fucking commercial with his curly hair and him moving in corporate spaces and having that conversation. It was just worse. What Baldwin did and contributed to us is a far greater than now you start name dropping on your other end those folks who you believe have a more significant impact than what Baldwin was able to do towards the image of the black male. All right, so let's start high and then we'll break it down low. And I'm gonna rock this piece out, even if it's me by myself. I might lose people in the B1 network because a lot of them don't like to have that conversation around that space. And I try to avoid it as much as I can when I'm talking to men. Why do we have to talk about what the LGBT community is doing in the first place? Don't you have a primary focus on the heterosexual African-American male and any darts that are thrown towards the black household? If that is your premier focus, then these peripheral arguments are already a distraction and they're distasteful. But if you want to have the conversation in a grandiose view and say, well, these are essentially other darts that are being thrown at the black man and his leadership, not only in his household, but in a broader context amongst other civilizations of men inside of America, then I'll entertain it for a little bit. But it's always going to wrap back down to this one major point. I'll give it to you and then I'll move into my lecture. Number one, you are sitting on your own throne. Now, if you sit on that throne and look to guidance towards the Romans and the Egyptians or the Mediterranean, any of the Mediterranean peoples and the classical civilizations or the Athenian rule or the Roman rule or whatever it is that you want to harp on as your driving force, then that will be you. But right now you are, and even then you are sitting on your own throne. You're going to have to stand on your own square. My square that I stand on is still going to be the black men historically and even unto today. I look at the economic, the political, the social conditions that we are under, and that's what I elaborate on. But if the conversation has to go towards swirlers, black men who want to justify for other black men moving inside of other civilizations, dating and mating, then all right, I hear you. And if it has to equivocate to the LGBTQ community, who just so happen to have a Supreme Court case on the books right now, then you can go over there if you would like to. Power moves in a different formula than what these folks are willing to have a conversation about. Salute, B1. And because they're not willing to have the conversation from a legitimate lens that says the black man's power is being compromised by looking at these side conversations as being the key driver, then we're already at a disadvantage. I'll say that again. They want to have these sidebar conversations continuously. I'm talking thousands and thousands of hours of content on sidebar issues. When you make them root it down, get all the way specific with what your major premise is. Your major premise is, and this is where they disagree, and we'll keep it on point because I'm Brother Moses. Their major premise is it is more detrimental to be with a black woman than it is to be with anything else. And that's why they would have the gall, the audacity to justify in the cape and to jump onto the side that says black men dating interracially or interracial mating is a more viable topic than black history, black politics, and black economics. That's why they would move away from having the conversation about the black male in his household and what issues he might face and better ways for him to secure it. They would move the conversation to a space of save yourself, black man, from the black woman. They would move the conversation into a space of let's just not deal with women, period. They would move the conversation to a space of celibacy. They would move the conversation away from black men. You are responsible. You are sitting on your own throne. You are the man. You are the God of your gods. You are the Lord of your lords. You are the head of your house. You are the king of all kings. You are. And that empowered, that sentiment there gets lost in, well, now the system is going to do something that's going to circumvent you from being able to execute your power and your dominion. All right. Double talk, double standards. I talk about the history and the lens of one that says these are the struggles that we've been up against. I almost look at them as victories, even in our losses, because it takes one hell of a courageous black man to stand on an economic, political, and a social square. You have to. Now, the folks who want to run into religion, that's a different group. I see the viability in organizing in collective mass and being able to do that. But we're talking households. The struggle that they have is in the individual household, not per capita. Not the median income of all black people is around 30,000, but we have a Robert Smith who has millions, billions of dollars that shows that a black man can make it if he executes a certain formula. We're not talking the outliers. The black male household and the black man ruling in that household is first and foremost in this conversation. All right. First and foremost. And to continue that legacy, what is your point? Number one, to continue the legacy of a black male household in a dominant faction, you have to procreate or recreate black. You do. And if you're not going to be procreating or recreating black men who can survive, then you might as well be over there with them LGBTQ. You're no different. You're dating inside of those other civilizations, reproducing everything but that thing that you are. You are the purpose, or you are the driver, those black men who decide that they would rather cape for the other community that say, well, being with a white woman isn't so bad. Being with a white woman means that she's feminine. Being with a white woman means that your DNA, biologically, your DNA is now mixing with the biological DNA of an entire different damn near species, if you ask me. Yeah, they're in the same genomes. They're humanoid or whatever you want to call them, and upright, bipedal. They walk on two legs and all of that shit. But they are closer to Neanderthalus, meaning rat, pig, bat, than they are to what we are, which is man. And show me where a dog can produce anything other than a dog. Just show me. I might get to understanding the perspective a little bit easier when you start showing me dogs reproducing something more than a dog. Can we start there? The biological or the genetic sequence, your genetic sequence is one that has been, matriculated. And at some point you're going to get back to say, well, I'm black. But 4 generations ago, there was some race mixing that happened. And all of that, would you have preferred that it happened or not happened? Well, that's outside of my power. So let's come back to today. Now that it is in your power, are you still advocating for that again? And their answer might still be yes. They would advocate for it. And then if you can finally get them to start saying why they would advocate for it, it's not because they want to have a space in their home where they are empowered, but it is because they feel like if they have a black woman inside of their space, they are no longer empowered. And so again, I would have to ask, then what happened? You want to push this narrative of being afraid of the black woman. And thus your argument is that being with the black woman, being with a white woman, then makes you more empowered. I would beg to differ and say, no, brother, if you are not empowered, it wouldn't matter if you were with a white woman, a damn dog, or if you was over there with them LGBTQ folks. Which one is worse? For me, shit, if you ain't here to reproduce a black man and a black woman, then shit, either can be detrimental. But the image right now, I think you'll probably find, if you rock with the kid, you'll probably find that the powerful black men and the powerful networks that we try to establish here in the belly of the beast, or outside the belly, but still within that context of the belly of the beast, is when we have that strong unified force at home. One that doesn't feel like it's in competition with that black woman, one that doesn't feel it needs to subjugate that black woman, one that doesn't feel as if the introduction of white dollars, or that black woman working and bringing in an income, the introduction of white dollars into a black space, that black household, again, is an issue. Now, where would I push back? Because now you're trying to intercorrelate. You got white dollars, so you got to work and you got to do what you got to do to earn an income, right? You could be your own entrepreneur, even as an entrepreneurial black man. Let's talk economics first. And I break this shit down for about 5 minutes. I'm at 15 minutes now. In about 5 minutes, I'll be done with this economic argument. So the viability, I got to give them some, they like the talking points, give them small talking points. It's economically feasible for you to move forward with a strong black woman than it is for you to try to find one of these Baylor trailer park Beckys to couple underneath. You find you a trailer park Becky, and I'll probably tell you 9 times out of 10, it's probably because you are not an empowered man. You are not an empowered black man. That's why you want a trailer park Becky or something, some low-level, low-class white woman who would be submissive to you. Economically, if you get you a strong black woman, she's probably already too busy for that bullshit. She's not the one who's calling the police on you. She's not the one that's doing all of that. If she's raising her voice, it's probably going to be in a different direction. I'm tired. I'm stressed. I ain't cooking. Your submission is deeply rooted in things that are not economic. And if she's a strong black woman, she probably has her own economic base that she can contribute. So the household benefits from having that stronger correlation between the black woman and the black man. Now, let me do it this way, just in case these folks try to run again. The black man and the black woman are the economically viable machine towards liberation. The black man and the black woman are the economically viable machine towards liberation. We're still in the belly of the beast. Everything else will be an equivocal. Oh, you could do that with a white woman as well. Yeah, and your children will be passing along their inheritance and their children to a diluted mix, to the point where now you're just talking about I don't even know what kind of breed of a species it is. At some point, I'll do it. I'm not done with my 5 minutes. Damn, that was only 1 minute and 48 seconds. Economically viable position. So the African-American, I'll give them some talking points that they like, but they already know. The African-American woman in education, the fastest growing demographic of education is the black woman. She's playing the game. Get your education, get that knowledge base, move forward. So you'll see the black woman also making strides in corporate America. When they're talking about diverse talent, that black woman there. When they're talking about black lawyers or black doctors, they're talking about her. Now, it's not my problem to try to keep telling these men that if you're going for the registered nurse over the black doctor or the black lawyer or the black, so doctors, lawyers, even the black principals, and then the black CEO of her own company, the black STEM woman, any of those other viable black women who could add a hell of a component to your household, you being a stand upright black empowered man, right? You being somebody who contributes and does your part, right? You're not the violent, you're not the Pookie and Ray Ray. You are a well-off black man, right? And so what you're really trying to protect is your income, right? You're trying to protect your economic viability in the long term. You're trying to prevent going to jail. You don't want to get a domestic violence charge against you. That's why you want a submissive woman. You want a woman who kind of, knows her role. She has a place. If you get you a strong black woman, I bet you her space is probably economically viable. So what is the counter argument? Because I'm fair. Well, with education probably comes some debt. And there is nothing against that. You're going to have to manage some debt when you get a black woman who has an education and student loans. Yes, you will not be able to just say, well, everything you bring in, babe, comes to me. No, she will have some bills that are already in her own name, comes with the territory. If you want a woman who doesn't have student loans, then you're probably going to have to fall back into that space of a black woman who works at a Walmart, or she could be a manager at a retail is what I'm trying to say. Sorry for the Walmart reference. A retail woman, maybe the RN has an education at that point, but I think those are certified type programs. So that the student loan debt that she might have might be somewhere between $1,000 and maybe $7,000 if she really goes deep into her RN space, or she just took hella fucking years. I don't know why it would take so long. She might get up to $20,000 in student loan debt. In any event, the debt that she comes with into the relationship, being a strong and viable woman, a woman who has a focus, one that doesn't divert your income into a different space because she has her own bills and she has her own way. She has a thing that she's fighting for, whether it's real estate or whatever it might be. She's there already. So the financial aspect of getting with an educated black woman, I don't see how you just dismiss them outright and just say, well, I want the white woman because she's submissive. It just doesn't work in those books. Again, economically viable machine towards liberation means that now that it's you a black man with a black woman when you determine that you want to start doing bigger and better things in outside of your own household, but you want to engage in those things. You got an armed conflict against the child support system. As big as it is, you want to have an impact in your generation as a black. You want to move from being an individual into a collective. You want to fight the matriarchy now. You want to be a part of the patriarchy now. You want to establish a place where black men have dominion, not just you in your own household, but now you're talking about reproducing this ideology where black men and what we say goes, and what we say other civilizations have to bow down to. So I'm gonna move into politics for the next 5 minutes. Politically, right now, you're at the lower end of the totem pole trying to do this whole political argument where you say, peace and salute, man. It got so hectic over there on the Rumble that I need to bring my politics over here, because I don't want to yell and scream and yell at people who seem to not understand how data works, statistics, per capita. It's an overinflation of numbers that are generated in order to make a case. And when I tell you that it's an overinflated use of numbers in order to make a case, they can have 10,000 incidents that they actually have data for, and then they'll say, well, what if it was 100,000? Now, what if it was 1 million? And they'll make it a representative. They'll infer information based off of that 10,000 cases that they actually might have data for. And then they'll go underneath that and tell you where our data is missing a couple of key elements. Number one, we're having a conversation about race, but we're not able to differentiate between the races because the birth certificate may say one thing or another. Man, it was crazy time, Bandit. It was good for a moment, and then it went to the fuckery. Then we tried to draw them back in and see what their actual premises were, and then it went back to the fuckery. So it keeps going back and forth. On one end, I'll give you a summation of what that debate was. Hold on, let me get to the politics. I got 3 minutes left on politics. The political areas that you would actually want to be having a conversation about. Number one is the black man a viable leader from his household to his community to the local to the state, and then from a form of an ideology. All right, so you're talking about the big argument that they keep getting lost on, Time Bandit, is, oh no, well, black men are the only ones under a matriarchy or something like that. So instead of saying black men get out from underneath the matriarchy, they make it seem like the black women who have, I guess, usurped power from the black man is a black woman's issue. If the black man was the one who had his power usurped, then it is still beholden upon the black man to take his power back. So even in that same premise of them running and saying it's a matriarchy, and now that they are backed by the government or an ideology or other civilizations and other people, those men are now taking the legs out from underneath black men. And instead of having the conversation about black men standing up and where their role is, or even being able to look at the historical context, the social context, the political and economic context of the usurpation of how that power was usurped, so that other people who may not even understand what that whole matriarchal argument even is, or a patriarchal argument is, but for the other people who are just listening and learning and chiming in because it's YouTube, it's information and it's informative and educational, instead of them being able to learn from it, these talking points, the redundant talking points and double talk, seem to paint the black woman out to be the arch villain in this case, rather than looking at the black man and saying, see, brother, this is one of those incidents and don't fall for that same shit. Here's why I keep drawing the differentiator, though. It's your motherfucking throne. It is your throne, your dominion. Your throne, your dominion. Any political ideations still have to be vetted at your front door. Whatever. They could pass a law right now that says honey mustard, Dijon mustard is no, and mayonnaise. I'm gonna do it because, you know, it's a little bit, it's incendiary, right? Because we are talking about racial dynamics and social politics, right? So I'm gonna say mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is now forbidden. If you want to be the black man who says, you know what, but I really like mayonnaise, and so you continue to having mayonnaise in your house, that is, whatever happens inside of your household will be for your, this is your world, your throne. Right? Likewise, Oh, the white man is propagating, or they don't like to say it. They hate to say it. I just call it what it is. If the white man created a system, let me give you some actual numbers, because Moses, I can go on a rant all day. I get to you like this. I'll finish my sentence there, and then I'm gonna give you some actual something that you can use. Hey man, they got me on one, man, but I'm gonna have to go into it again and finally this. I guess you can call it like it is. My coming forward, then, Brother Maurice. My coming forward to be and fuck it, unapologetically, I'd rather be in the defense of the LGBT community than of the swirler generation. Facts. Brother Moses said it right now. I'm still a part of the B1 network, and even if the B1s want to disagree with that, they're gonna have to disagree. I would rather stand in defense of the LGBT community than that swirlers as what is most detrimental. The LGBT community and what they're doing over there is not as detrimental as the being with the white woman. The history of lynching and Jim Crow and all of that shit, and even to this day, the super predator with the presidential candidate who specializes in the super predator ideology and using that messaging. She even used that same messaging when she was campaigning against Barack Obama, using that same super predator type ideation, that idea. Again, we are battling about principalities here. What is the principle? What is the underlying core theme that you are trying to propagate as black media? The theme that they are trying to propagate is the black woman is dangerous to the black household. I disagree. Now let's move into the debate that they want to have. Not only is the black woman the most dangerous, she's more dangerous than the LGBT community and than being with white women. Now, again, where they really get me is now they take that last point and say now being with a white woman is more advantageous than it is even being with a black woman. All of those different things could be unpacked individually and separately. The debate then would be, look, if you don't want to be with a black woman, I got you. You're sitting here on these media trying to paint out black men, and this is where I tell you, you're painting out black men to be weak and black women to be detrimental to the black household. That is your message that you're putting out there. So again, the only equivalency that we can actually draw is one that says in using media to have conversations that are race-based, social-based, social political. You're using media to be social and political to talk about black people. And the message that you're using is that black men are weak because the government and everybody else can usurp the black man's authority in his own household. The black man is weak, and that the black woman is detrimental to the black household. That is the messaging that they're sending. So the only equivalent then, Brother Maurice, the only equivalent is the super predator and the history of using media to paint out black men to be super predators or weak or coming in and trying to dismantle and trying to go in. It's really the super predator reference is probably the most relevant. The super predator relevance is inextricably bound. So you can't separate it from the white woman's form of media. The super predator is the number one way that they use their media to paint out the black man. That's it. That white woman being with the black woman is your safety net. But we're moving away from the conversation about the black man and the black woman in order to placate to these remedial folks who want to have conversations in the peripheral. So in the peripheral, they want to have the conversation that says the white woman is better. And then they want to have the conversation that says LGBT is bad. All right. While I would agree that both could be bad, the white woman and the LGBTQ are bad. I would rather stand in defense of a motherfucker joining LGBTQ because at least at that point they said I'm not even procreating at all. I'm not talking about creating black families, the LGBTQ community. They're saying I'm not talking about having another black man that stands up. I'm not talking about having a black woman who's going to contend and fight on behalf of black people. They've already decided that that's out of the picture. So they can have their conversations over there. Their image is going to be intact as LGBT as they form their own thing. Black folks, though, are still going to have to be responsible for black folks. The LGBTQ can make up LGBTQ litigation and laws in a political context. Supreme Court justice, what are they doing right now? Fighting to get that one word, gender or whatever it is, to become a protected class or, race, gender, sexual orientation. They want it to be constitutionally recognized. So while black folks have to fight for black folks, or so race, African American, not to be discriminated against, they're fighting for their own separate class of people, their own separate, I don't know, it's not about reproduction, so you can't even call it a own species, but they're fighting for their own over there. Black, where does that take away from us? Let's do that. The argument then is that they're taking away your shine, your media, ours. While people are talking about LGBTQ, they are not talking about the black person, the black family, the black household. And so again, it reverts back to this same premise. That is not their problem. That is the black man's problem once again. It will still come back to, when I say accountability, if your arguments are going to move out of your household and now go on a collective good, and what is most detrimental to that collective, then drawing attention on what other people are doing and having success or having failure with is still diverting attention away from what you're doing. The African American man has his sole responsibility, number one, if you ask me, they'll disagree. The African American man has his sole responsibility to be the protector and defender of his, not his LGBT and not his white woman, not his toy. That shit slaps him in the face, because now it's talking about the black man's ability to choose. Yeah, you could choose whatever you want. Even when Henry Ford made his car, he said, look, you can get my Henry model car, you can get my Ford in whatever color you want, as long as that motherfucking color is black. That's what he said when he made his Model Ford. You can get it in whatever color you want. Your choice will be limited to what your options are. Now, the other community, the whites, the Asians and things, we already know this. We say it time and time again until it's exhausted. They are operating from a premise of, let's say, Asian and businesses. How do we come in, or how do we move into the space of owning our own businesses to pass those businesses down to our kids? That's what they're focusing on. Inside of their household, they might say, and now interracial dating is forbidden amongst us. And then they might have their rebellious few who go off and interracially date. But that does not become the public dialogue about Asians. From Asians is their interracial dating. They keep that order and construct within their own household, but on the collective, the public media, or the image of the black man is now one that has to be moved towards these peripheral conversations. So instead of now black men in this public space, again, what are any barriers towards black success as entrepreneurs? That's a conversation. What are the barriers to success as a black entrepreneur? That starts the conversation. What are the barriers to success as a black entrepreneur? That starts the conversation. Now branch that out. What are any of the barriers to success in, I don't want to be an entrepreneur, I just want to get a job. But I don't want just any job. I want a job that pays even more than a living wage. And not only do I want a job that pays more than a living wage, I want it to come with some perks and bonuses, some stock options, something like that. I want the ability to actually invest in the next generation. So you have a child. Let's say you are one of those, you're a swirler. Your responsibility will still be to your child. You're going public and then saying, no, the white kids there, I'll do it this way. I'm gonna get personally anecdotal. Hopefully you can follow this. I am a little bit shook, because on this topic, there are some sensitivities here that are race and socially connected, and we are operating in a public space. And so putting out the information that is most vital is important to me. And the information that is most vital is the critique, or the critical analysis on the higher impact conversations. So like Jeremy Awaken said, higher loan qualifications as a barrier to entry for black entrepreneurs. Is there data that you can pull on that? Absolutely. But when we go over to these other platforms, they want us to pull data on the divorce rates for black women. And they want us to pull data for domestic violence rates against black women. And they want us to pull data. And the reason why they want us to pull this data in a debate is because they want to justify the talking point of black men sleeping outside of their race. And so the conversation equivocates and it moves from what is the most powerful, which is the black man standing on his square, sitting on his throne, into the weakened, damaged black man who now needs a white woman because she's more submissive. First of all, that black woman is probably fighting for something. And if you become something that she has to fight against, then that is still your problem. The black woman is probably fighting for something. And if you become something that she has to fight against, then that is probably your problem. Oh, he's caping for black women. The black woman is probably fighting for something. And if you become something that she has to fight against, then that's probably your problem. Do you want the black woman? No, I don't want the black woman on my side. I would rather have a white woman. Why is that? Because you know the legacy was the protection extended to that white woman. That protection was also against niggas like you trying to move into that space where, oh, a white woman finally approves of me. She accepts me. She thinks I'm handsome and she'll make me a bologna sandwich with extra mayo. I almost wanted to use the Grey Poupon, but I'll get right to it. You love that mayonnaise. It's that sandwich that takes you away from fighting alongside of a woman who is fighting for something and finding yourself complacent and comfortable. All right, I'm done with the politics. Let's get personal. You want to find yourself in a space of authority with somebody weak does not make you stronger. You want to find yourself in a position of authority with somebody weak does not make you stronger. The black man's strength is because his adversary has always been one that was willing to kill, steal, destroy, and rape, including not just, they didn't have the gall to say, well, we'll go after the black man only, but including against that black woman. And now you want her to fight against you. And the idea that the other civilizations have put in place things that protect them and isolate them away from these kind of issues, you would have to look at that as being a valid point. The other civilizations that have put in place things to protect them can be a valid conversation. Only when and here's where I draw the line. The things that they put in place that put you in a position of disadvantage. The things that they put in place to put you as the man sitting on his own throne, and then they have to sit on their own throne. They have to respect with Falal their elders. You have to respect your elders, or you don't, one way or the other. They have to respect their ancestry and those who invested and made a way for them, like 1 generation, 2 generation, 3 generations ago, and decided to come to America and find a way to survive here along these rivers and along these forests in this fucking wilderness. They decided what they would need to do. And when they decided to do what they needed to do, did they put in place socially, politically, and economically anything that targets you and yours? That's when the conversation becomes important. Because yes, there are some barriers to entry that they put in order to protect themselves. Now, black men, when we're having conversations with black men, why ain't that the conversation? The establishment of those things that make the barrier to entry a little bit higher if you want to attack or assault the black woman or the black man. You want, what did Jeremy say? You can't sharpen iron with cotton. You want a submissive or a docile woman because the battles that you are fighting are against women. You want you want a submissive and docile woman because the battles that you are actually fighting are against women. If you were fighting battles against men, then when you came home, what went wrong? You spend all day at all of your time. Now, we're grown here, so I will assume that the people that I'm talking to have jobs. Now, when I do the math, and this is something that I've had to do in my own personal anecdotal relationship, I try to stay away from it, but breaking down the time that you spend over there in those other civilizations and doing exactly whatever it is you need to do, whether you're working in a call center, whether you're working in retail, whether you're working in I don't know, packaging, whether you're driving trucks and delivering goods and keeping commerce flowing, whatever it is that you're doing, after you got 24 hours. And how much time do you actually spend devoted and dedicated to doing that inside of and for that other community? And how much time do you actually spend defending or protecting your own home? How much time do you actually even spend with the woman that you need her to be that damn submissive? And if you need her to be submissive to you, then what the fuck are you actually focused on? No, you want to preach this conversation starts getting lost with me because I'm married for like 12 years here. Go ahead, sis. Married for like 12 years here. And some of the instances that they say, a black woman who wants to raise her voice, yeah, it's happened probably for about 5 minutes within the span of an entire fucking year. What are you talking about? How often do you do something or say something that causes a black woman to want to raise her fucking voice with you? When does that happen? That your aggression, even at work, how often does something happen that causes you to raise your voice with somebody else? Why do you need submission? What is the submission piece that you are actually asking for? Because when I start looking at it, and now we can get into the politics of it, what you're asking for is them to not punish your ass no more. Oh, no, you don't want consequences for whatever actions you've decided to take. You don't want accountability, the accountability that holds yourself in the highest regard, that you would have to commit yourself to whatever accountability you're referring to. So if it's the creation of intergenerational wealth and you're trying to do so through this capitalist system by I'm going to be a buyer and seller of goods. You're in a retail space. You no longer want to work for somebody else's business who buys and sells. You want to buy and sell and put your own price on it. And that woman then says, well, how much did you make? Your response isn't shut up, bitch. Don't question me. Get out of my pockets. That's probably why you get yelled at. Economically viable, she's trying to hold you accountable for creating the intergenerational wealth, for passing something down to that family that you said is important. Unless, of course, that wasn't actually what was important to you. No, you were talking about sexual submission. You want head every day. That is the only thing that I can think of when it comes to stereotypes, race to race, is that the Becky does fellatio. That is like the only thing that I can think of as a stereotype as to why you would be equating submission, and the black woman is not submissive to any of these strong black household arguments. I know what they'll say. They'll say, Moses, you're creating a scarecrow. You're talking about the sexual behaviors of the women, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about divorce rates. My question would be, why did she divorce you? What did you do? Because if you are the king of your throne, then what's the problem? Was she just predatory? She was just looking for a black man that she could divorce. I forget who it was, but somebody called him on that. Nigga, you ain't got much yet. Where are you at? In order to really vet out that conversation, you're going to have to, and I don't mean just dropping your, I got $12,000 that I won in a lottery ticket or something like that. No, in your creation of intergenerational wealth, what are you trying to protect? What is really at risk? Because the others, like they like to allude to, are creating defenses and protection measures politically, economically, and socially. And the black male image of being a sexual predator or a super predator or a deviant is bad. And the media that currently stands is the one that says, don't trust that black woman. And that's what they're propagating. That is the core premise of the media or the message that they are sending. The black man is a sexual deviant who's going from here to there internationally trying to fuck something. excuse my language. They're making an image that aligns with the super predator image, and it's all to protect their ability or their right to pursue white women. But having the conversation from an intellectual lens that says, look, what you're talking about, I agree with you. I agree with you that as a protection measure, there were anti-miscegenation laws that were targeted at the black man and the white woman specifically. They weren't talking about the white man and the black woman in many of those cases. As we know from our history, when that white man wanted him a black woman, he would take it. And the ability or the accountability, the responsibility to put up protections against other races of men being able to sexually target black women is the responsibility of who? B1 for life? Whose responsibility is that? I don't care if they're talking individual household or if they move into a collective. I don't care if they try to say what other men are doing or if they try to say it's a matrilineal or a patrilineal. Whose responsibility is it to create those defenses and that protection? Whose is it? When Henry Ford said, you can have my model Ford as your form of transportation in any color as long as it is black, that is setting a standard. That is defense and protection of his brand, his image, I guess, the image of that Ford in the early age. So having the conversation with people who get in a public space can be triggering when they are misaligned with what that brand should stand for. That brand is not one to continue to regurgitate the information about black male weakness in the face of white men and the white man's laws. Oh no, when the white man gave them the law, they jumped right on that. When the white man gave her a law, gave her the ability to sue the black man for child support and to take him to court, the black woman then becomes a traitor for assuming it. Again, brother, you're going to have to start with when that law was created, whose job was it to prevent that law from being enacted? Oh, but they are the supermajority, so what they say goes. You keep empowering the white man at every conversation and defending the white woman at every conversation you can as a way of equivocating from answering that question that says, whose responsibility is it to put up the defenses and the protections for the black male image? It is more detrimental when you choose to try to side with that white woman, because the history doesn't vet it out, neither does the current situation. 97% clip rate of those white women. How many white women that are siding with the majority, which is still putting in defenses and protections that put you as a black man at a disadvantage? But you want to side with them, the people who are creating policy socially, politically, and economically that disadvantage black people. And you're siding with them. And when I ask you, why are you siding with them? You say it's submission. You try to use that Hallmark shit and make it about something that's super big because they're submitting. Submitting to what? Nigga, you don't got time to be focused on that, like Ramil would say, somebody who you brought up to be on your team. Like Ramil would say, if you are focused, and this is what I would tell you. First of all, I would say if you've had some fucked up experiences with black women and you truly look at it and critically examine it, you're going to have to say, well, what kind of black women was I attracted to when whatever happened in your life, whatever traumatized Joe has, whatever caused whatever controversy and trauma to these dudes to make them want to jump the whole fucking fence and try to go over there where 97% of them are keeping it racially or ethnically monogamous, where they are fucking with them 97% at a 97% clip. Only 3% of them are even dating outside. So your options are already with that small 3%. And so when we go there, I would say it this way on my own space. What kind of woman are you looking for in the first place? because you gotta be accepting some trash type shit, like some Playboy bunny shit, like a Robert Smith. You gotta be accepting some Playboy bunny shit. You gotta be accepting something that's been ran down and downtrodden, some trailer park shit. Some morally, ethically, whatever trailer park shit, something that aligns with some Ratchet Becky shit. That's the only way that I can see it happening. You got to be the Robert Smith that wants the Playboy bunny. It has to be something about the sexual deprivation. It has to be. It can't be, because if your purpose is intergenerational wealth creation, then the median household, you're not even there. You're talking about somebody who's operating in a higher rung, or are you not? Whom are you referring? Nah, whom are you referring, to be specific when you're talking about this? Lay out your premise. Make your premise clear. What are the points that you want to drive home? And let's have the debate or the discussion based off of those points. Bringing in this extra sidebar conversation about the meaningless shit doesn't allow you to even drill down. You can, at one hand, say, look, these white women are fucking with white men predominantly share at a time, and then encourage black men to pursue that 3%. What is the 3% remaining going to look like for the black man as an option? Is that a viable model towards liberation from these same issues you have a problem with? Child support, getting divorced. If it's not going to prevent you from being divorced, then you have to take divorce off the table. That is not an issue that can be prevented just by dating on the other side of the fence. If a white woman will divorce you just like a black woman will divorce you, then there is no benefit there when it comes to not being divorced. And if divorce then is the cosm that you're looking at, and you're saying, well, because divorce is on the table, divorce is a problem because it's my economic viability. No, don't tell me about how much economic viability. Don't break down, well, I have 7 properties here and I have these businesses that are running and I'm doing, $60,000 in revenue from my own independent businesses. YouTube is just a space to connect with other people and have a conversation. But in my life, you don't have to don't run me your economic resume. The point is, you are trying to defend your economics with an emphasis on creating intergenerational wealth. If that is your premise, that you're trying to protect your wealth or your resources as a black man, then the next argument, then divorce being something that's universal when it comes to black men, a white woman, an Asian woman, or a black woman will divorce your ass, then that argument is now off the table. What is the next conversation? You are not safe just by marrying a Becky from divorce. Your economic situation is not safeguarded because you married a Becky, because you got with a white woman. That is not what safeguards your wealth. Now, I would love to throw in the anecdotal information about, black CEOs. I mean, not black CEOs, but high performing. What do they like to use words that kind of take it away. Diverse talent is what they call you, but high performing diverse talent that just so happens to be a black male, and the networks that they have, and inside of those networks. So we're talking collective again, right? Inside of those networks, one of the things that is the most taboo that will get you shunned or thrown out of those networks is the interracial dating. So what am I talking about here? I'm talking about your boule, which is obviously where they want to go, since they're talking about economics or preserving their economics and their wealth attainment. Then you're talking about becoming either upper class or high middle class, $70,000 to $100,000 a year. What does that take? For one, that's either a good job that pays a living wage with some type of bonus incentivized there, where you can get a stock option or a 401k, something like that. Something more than just vacation days and sick days are covered, and you have the flexibility on a couple of days where you can work with your schedule. No, you need a job that does the living wage. It has some accumulation and investments and savings or something like that you can benefit from, the benefits of medical care that kind of get you in health equity a little bit, so you can go to the dentist, you can go to the doctor should you need to, and much of it would be covered. Life insurance policies, any of those things that allow you as a black man to operate within the beast, if that's where you want to go. Remember, if that's where you want to go, is the caveat. For others, it is through their own sustainable businesses that they can create. So you got to be your own marketer. You got to be your own accountant. You got to bookkeeper rather. You got to be your own brand ambassador. You got a website, and you got to be able to create your own web pages. See, these are the actual data. You want to go to data. This is not CDC data. This isn't Small Business Administration data. This isn't Department of Justice data that talks about peripheral things. You're talking about the viability of the Black household to sustain itself in the long term, and one that says, is it worse if you just jump over that fence? And I'm gonna stop right there on the whole back and forth. But unless they actually want to have that conversation, and I tell you, I'm probably am credible person to speak on it in defense of the LGBTQ. Now I know some of the B1 won't like that shit, that you have to have somebody who stands in defense. But if their argument is it is safer to be with a Black woman, the image of the Black man is safer. How do you really want to word it? The image of the Black man is safer. See, that's where we're at. The image, they were doing it in the adverse. It is more detrimental. Oh, a Black man with a white woman is less detrimental than them just doing their own thing. LGBTQ. Go over there with that gay. You don't even want to create families. You don't even want to do it anymore. And so they say the LGBTQ is worse. I would stand in defense and say, no, that's not worse. This race mixing shit is probably going to be worse for me. And here's the reasons why. Number one, you're still susceptible to the same things that happen in your relationship, except now you're surrendering your power to a mixed breed. It's not just the Black man. You're not even trying to produce Black men and Black children, which is the push conversation. LGBTQ, they're not even trying to push for Black men. So their image is still preserving that outside image. The one that is trying to preserve the Black male image is the one that says, are we dating Black women or the outside race, is the more relevant conversation. So now you want to show why it's more detrimental. Let's start there, Brother Nubian. Let's start right there. Oh, hold on. Brother Nubian D-Nubian pointed out some. He said, Jeremy has a point. How many white women has had to live most of their life on the defense? Becky has never had to be on the defense and try to move forward in life. At the same time, makes them seem to be more submissive. I mean, there's like 4 different elements that you can unpack right there. I might have to come back to it, but in summation, living their life on the defense, that is in relation to the Black woman. The Black woman has always had to defend herself, not only from the sexual deviance from the real sexual predators, which is the white rapists, the Romans, and the Greek, who determined in the first place that this homoerotic behavior was acceptable. That's the boy lovers. And then the right is might is right argument. The going inside of other places, killing, stealing, and destroying, even before Genghis Khan could do it, going inside of other civilizations and raping their women was right. That was the thing from the Roman Empire and in their interactions with other races, other civilizations of people. That is not the going in there and having as much sex as you want with the other races, daughters and their nieces and their wives. And whatever it is, that is a different philosophy than the one that the African American even has. And the one that says Black men go over there and fuck with those white women is definitely more detrimental. Now you're even triggering that same media that you're trying to placate to, that same one where you're siding with them when it comes to who's the real super predator. You say Black men are, that's where they're going internationally dating, and they're going to Brazil and Colombia and Africa, and they're going to all of these places and save yourself from who? From the Black woman. You're saying Black men are going out there and dating, which does what to the other men? Now those other men, again, protecting and defending their women, their daughters, their wives, their nieces, rightfully so, would be in that position to put those defense measures in place. Oh, Black men now in media are advocating for other Black men to come and have sex with our daughters. What should they do about it? What do you think would be the reaction of those other civilizations who you feel are at the top of the top? Fantastic. They are at the top of the top. And then these Asians and these other folks, they're at the top of the top to you. How do you think they got there? First and foremost, they put in defenses and protections against their own interests. And many of those defenses and protections that they put in place were put in place to your disadvantage. And rather than having the conversation that moves Black men into a position of advantage against those defenses and protections that other people put in, you put in one that says sexual deviance. Okay, I just can't rock with that conversation. For you to feel like that conversation is more powerful than the history and social context that is delivered from the B1 network, I cannot rock with that. Now, you want to have the conversation about the LGBTQ community and what they're doing. If anything, I would tell you they got a Supreme Court justice case where they're trying to create their own thing over there, where it says, that you can't discriminate based on race or religion and gender. They're trying to create one that says sexual orientation. That's about as far as I go when it comes to the LGBTQ community. That when it comes to politics and economics, they're doing what they got to do. But on the B1 network, what I say we do is we analyze black first, not gay first, and not the bashing of black, which then by default would be white first. Do you not understand that when you are aligning with the anti-black, that you are, look, I say I'm pro-black, not anti-white. You don't see me spending my time degrading white folks. What you'll see me doing is giving you the tidbits of information that you need to fight back when you're having those conversations against those who believe that shit, who have drunk that Kool-Aid, that think white people are the top of the top. That's just not the way that it works. White people can tell you that they're at the top of the top. Black people can tell you that they're at the top of the top. Whose side do you side with? You would probably say that the white people are at the top of the top. Why would you say that? Well, economically and all of these other viable machines that you want to compare it to, then I would bring you back and say, yep, brother, as well as that you like to look at all of those areas, we could talk about that. But they've set up some defenses and protections with those definitions of being at the top of the top. They said it's circular logic. The top of the top is having the most economics. So in order for us to have the most economics, what is economics broken down into? Well, that's going to be land and resource materials and all of that shit. So what did they do? In order to defend their land and to resources, the acquisition of resources, they put in certain defenses and protections, i.e. the barriers to entry for land ownership. Cost, dollar. What is a dollar worth? Take that dollar to a place in Ghana and they'll look at you like, God damn, this dollar is probably not as important as a whole motherfucking basket of fruit is. But it's a dollar. To you, it means something. So they put in defenses and protections on this definition of being at the top of the top, the economic definition of what it means to be at the top of the top. So for you then, as a black man, to then say, well, being at the top of the top means that I have more land and more resources, means that in your minds, you agree with their definition of top of the top. That if a black man says being top of the top means that I can provide for my children in my home, and that makes me the top of the top. Oh no, even more than that. Not just am I able to provide for my children and my family, but now I'm in a position to provide for my extended family. Not just in-laws, but my cousins, my brother. If my niece was ever in a position of want, she can come to me as a black man. But let's not stop there, Brother Midtown. If being at the top of the top is now defined as that black man saying, I can provide, again, listen to the language. They like to equivocate. I can provide, and I'll give you another one, and protect. But I can provide for not just myself. I'm not starving along this river in this wilderness. I'm not just hunting one squirrel that I can eat. Now that I've hunted, I got a whole deer that can provide for me and my family and my extended family. My top of the top bar has been moved up to not only can I provide for me, myself, my extended family, my nieces if she ever needs, but my neighbor is now included. I can even share a leg or a thigh of this deer with my neighbor. So the top of the top still has their same economic premise, but it's just broken down by a different perspective. A B1 perspective says, how am I providing and to whom am I providing for? How am I providing and to whom am I providing for? So why is it more detrimental then for the image to now move to black man, white woman? It's more detrimental because of whom you're providing for now is not even the, maybe it's just me. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Am I doing too much Negro splaining on this shit? Maybe we don't get it. Another analogy then. when I was doing the research for this whole reparations conversation and what I had been going through, I wanted to find my family's history. And so I went back off of the surnames that we have. And then I went back off of the information that my father was able to provide and off the information that my mother was able to provide. So let's trace back the Jenkins. And the only way to do so, it only went so far going off of the hearsay or the passed down information from my father, who says my grandfather's name was. As we know, in order for me to get back to the 1862, I'm going to need my father to be able to tell me more information than whom his grandfather was. I need information on whom his grandfather's grandfather was in order to make a reparations claim legitimate, to be able to even find those names on birth certificates, things like that. When we look at data, like I brought up earlier, the ability to capture race and ethnicity and all of that shit on birth certificates has changed as the classification of those ethnicities has changed over the years. Therefore, being able to formulate any opinion based off of what ethnicity or race is has its complications. I digress. We're looking back, and I'm looking back and trying to find out for the reparations conversation, where are my family? And so I did it in reverse then. If I can't find them based off of the Black living testament of the people who are alive today, actionable, who can tell me the great-grandfathers and the great-great-grandfathers were, now I need to go outside of my own home. I need to go outside of my own home. I need to go outside of my own family for information vital for my success. And they would have you believe that it is a stronger position to be that nigga who has to go outside of his own home and outside of his own family for information or for whatever that might be critical to their success. And why is that the case, Brother Jeremy? They won't tell you, but it's masked in their rhetoric. They won't come out and tell you that it's better to be in a subservient position than to be sitting on your own throne. They won't tell you that. They won't tell you that that's what they're saying, but that's what they're advocating, Brother Midtown. That is exactly what they're advocating. That's why you want to go to that white woman, right? Being with the white woman, let's give them their, let's do it. Let's play the game before we can even get into what our position really is. Let's try to better understand what the fuck they're even saying. So submission, if they are not, let's give them the benefit of the doubt real quick, Jeremy. If they are not saying it's about sexual submission, if they are saying, look, the black men talking about submission, it's in different things like behavior. Let's tell them to break that down. Are they talking about economic behaviors like Brother Moses pointed out, saying that the black woman getting the highest degrees and more education and moving into those spaces at the best rate of, becoming a doctor, a lawyer, and all of those areas? The black woman getting her education, becoming the doctors, the lawyers, and in those areas. The black woman getting her education and becoming the doctors, the lawyers, and in that conversation. Is that what they're talking about, or are they dodging that? Because then what happens again, it puts the accountability back on them and says, well, what kind of woman are you talking about? Oh, you must be talking about one of them retail bitches. You're talking about getting doctor and lawyer income and economic viability, somebody who doesn't stand to take away from you. You're talking about getting a strong black woman, but using talking points for the retail woman, the Walmart woman, the selling a product woman. Not the numbers that they want to use, is the action items, is that your market space for a strong black woman is getting bigger because black women now are getting that degree. So you want to insulate your economics by dating up or by dating across a woman who has equal or more than you. Start there, and you'll find out that if you start there, then your numbers start to drop diminishly, because those women aren't the women that you are saying are misbehaving. And what is these misbehaviors you're referring to? If I take them away from this submissive argument, once you find out that alphas typically are people who run shit, not just run their mouth, that alphas, even on those female side, women who are strong, liberated, legitimate, I just got my degree and now I'm moving forward, I got me something that won't compete with their economics. I'm trying to give them their argument. A woman that is your money is your money. Let's sign a prenup. She asked you to sign a prenup, woman. That obviously can't be the type of woman they're talking about. It obviously can't. And the reason why they wouldn't want to talk about that number is because it stands in contrary to their belief that black women ain't shit, that black women are the most dangerous to the black man. And while I would tell you that when it comes just to the systems that are in place to support that black man versus the systems that are in place to support that black woman, that our struggle will be now, out of those systems, which of those systems originate in black thought? They'd say, well, I'm going too far. I'm doing too much. More ammunition. Now that we could break down that this homoerotic conversation that they want to keep having about the LGBTQ community and the whole rape culture ideology comes from a Roman lineage. It's not our information. At some point, you would have to say, well, where are you getting your information from when you hear them using those talking points? Where do you get your principles from? What principles are you standing on when it comes to being the head of household? And if your principles are misaligned, then of course she gonna divorce your stupid ass. Hopefully that didn't bust them across their head too hard. You have black men who have started to adopt the nuances of another culture, and they're trying to mimic that other culture because they want to assimilate inside of that culture. They have submitted themselves to this ideology that the white man and his systems, the majority, is right. And the principles that undergird the white man defending and protecting his own people, they now think, because, I'm with you, they now think those defenses and those protections apply to them. And they think that they can get the advantages of whiteness now extended to them by default of dating a white woman. Does that seem to make sense there? I mean, it doesn't make sense, but is that a fair assessment? That if their biggest complaint is not, well, let me tell you how I'm trying to bring this shit in, and I'm trying to go to somebody else panel. Y'all know I hate talking. Well, I love talking, but I actually hate going in like this. But here's the problem, bro. Oh, my bad. The assessment is you're talking to a brother, and this brother is saying, save yourself from black women, right? He's saying, save yourself, black men. What does that mean to me, Brother Pookie, Midtown? It means that they are attempting to have a dialogue with black men. They're saying, save yourself, black men. And then they're moving into a space of telling black men what they need to save themselves from. So black men are under attack is logical. I'm right there, right? They're under attack. Now, Brother Moses says, now what are you under attack from? I don't believe that you're under attack by the LGBTQ. When the last time have you gone to a store and you just had some LGBTQ person just come up to you and attack you sexually, socially, politically, or whatever? They are not fucking with you. They're working on their own things. For that same, never mind. Are Hispanics actually attacking you? Well, I don't know. You could go to some border states. It might get a little worse. You can see that they're applying for jobs that you would otherwise have been qualified for, and they're getting hired. I don't know if they're deliberately attacking you. Are they at you? Who is actually attacking you, black man? And how are you under assault? Under what are you assault? That's why the conversation then moves to media. See, but all of these are the things that get left off, the interconnected pieces that help transition this conversation. I don't think that way so linear all the time, but let's do it linear for those folks. They said, save yourself, black man. So number one, they've identified that they have an audience of black men that they're talking to. And when they're talking to these black men, they're saying, save yourself, as if these men are under attack. And so we asked them, what are you really under attack from? And how are they attacking you? Number one, that's just me asking questions. My rebuttal to that would be, number one, black man, you are not weak. So your whole need to have somebody come save you is already an erroneous argument, one that is pushed by somebody who's weak, and misery loves company, wants to find a little, what did you call it? A therapy session for weakened black men. That's got to be it. But let's move forward. I don't even want to get into my argument yet. You know my arguments, though. If you're B1, you probably heard them a lot of times. I tell them, look, bro, you feel inferior. You feel whipped. You feel like your ass has been drugged through the mud. And the only escapism that you can find is in hypersexuality. Or is in Becky, like Brother Danubian says. Your only escapism that you can legitimately find is in your sexuality. And that's why you have these conversations about what is masculinity really means, is because you're trying to find refuge or escape from the fact that your ass is under attack socially, politically, and economically. And your only refuge is to talk about, well, masculinity means what? Doing more push-ups, nigga? If I was bigger and stronger, she would respect me. Nigga, no. The thing that you're saying the black woman respects. My bad. I be getting off track. Thanks for the black fist, man. This is the B1 Network, Brother Moses, man. This rumble triggered me to the extent where I don't even want to present the data no more. I feel like presenting data and what's wrong with data goes right over their heads, but they would still continue to use data. You point out points in the data that they can read for themselves. It says, look, it says it right here. This is the CDC data. Scroll to the bottom. At the bottom, it tells you word for word, here are some of the things that are wrong with our data. They acknowledge it. And then, so the findings, I'll read it for you. The findings in this report are subject to at least 5 limitations. First, data are available for a limited number of states and are therefore not nationally representative. So they told you this number is not nationally representative in the first place. So that has a host of problems in the first. Initially, what states did you actually get data from? And in those states, if you find a state where there is a disproportionately high number of crime and say, now we're going to use the data from these states, of course it's going to skew the data. Now what happens? You took data where there is a disproportionate number incidences of violence or crime or poverty, and then you said we only got 5,000 cases. How do we make this seem relevant? They said, well, let's just use this multiplier effect and call it a rate or a per capita argument. Say, now, even though we only have 5,000, what if this was actually 100,000 cases? It wasn't 100,000 cases in the first place. Over the span of 2003 to 2014, it was 10,000 cases. And even using their logic, they would say that it was 59% of those domestic violence cases, which is their premise, that ended in that homicide. And then some of them were suicide homicides. But those murders that he said was the biggest problem, those was 59% that they tried to attribute to them. So that's 590 cases per year that they're saying is the big problem. Number 2 issue with it, race, ethnicity data on those certificates might be misclassified, particularly for Hispanics. So when I see that, what does Brother Moses do? I go and scroll up at the actual data that they did use. On that damn data, Brother Moses finds, and this is not Brother Moses, I can drop the link in the chat, but it is from the CDC, which is one of the major sources that they like to use besides crime statistics in the Department of Justice. But again, racial and ethnic differences, they're going to prevail, and they're going to be analyzed from a social lens. And here in this YouTube space, we have that conversation that says, number 1, put black folks first. Number 1, put black folks first. If we're not top of mind, what are you talking about? Are you doing this for the advantage of the white women? Are you trying to make it seem like African-American men are a viable candidate to date interracially? And if that's the case, then open up your numbers and let's see how many white women actually even listen to you. Because if that's not the case, these straw man arguments that I'm tearing up to bear down, it's only to get them to actually state what their premise is. And they'll tell you that their premise is that black women are fucked up. The only way to progress that argument then is to say, now that you've acknowledged that black women are fucked up, either you're going to say how they got there, or you're going to do what I do and say, look, if black women are fucked up, black man, that was your loss. That is your loss. And you are the men that other men should be going up against when they're writing policies or bills or when they're moving in mixed spaces. I don't know where else to go besides say, look, if there is something that's happening look, oh, I said it one time before. I said, I must be dealing with the type of niggas who, when they heard the thugs outside with the music loud, they would rather call 911 or introduce another civilization, another group of people, their information, their hitters. They would rather call someone else to deal with the issue outside of their home than to be the black man accountable for that you hear going on outside. And because they would rather run from that responsibility. Now, look, they call the police because there's music outside that's too loud and it's outside of my home and they're bringing down my property value, and can't have the conversation legitimately about the fixing of property values, i.e. redlining. Like, nigga, you are arguing about loud music in the neighborhood and why that makes somebody a pookie or a thug and pants sagging and shit, and why that is the deflectionary conversation that you can have. And to what end are you making those points? Moses would tell you they are making those points because they align with the same rhetoric of the super predator argument. That's where they philosophically, psychologically align, is with a Roman and an Athenian philosophy on masculinity. Can I say it one more time in case somebody is still missing the interconnected pieces of this rambling rant that I've been on for over an hour? Because they've decided, choosing that white bitch, because they've decided that they are safer in the arms of Becky, you can see that mirror the ideology or the philosophies of the 97% number that he pulls. I'm going to slow it down. I'm missing words and phrases that need to be included. They said 97% of whites marry white. 97, the 97% number. So the predominant share marry white. And they are the majority. And because you believe in what they're doing to defend and protect themselves, you would be willing to go against the black. You'd bet against it. I bet you $1,000. You'd bet against it. You'd fight for it. Oh, no, I'll knock you out. If I saw you, I would slap you. That's what they say to another black. That's where they're at. Because I'm going to say it one more again. Because they actually feel safer in the arms of that which is only serving to defend and protect itself, which is whiteness. The preservation of whiteness by white people they feel is by default being American, now extended to them. Which is why on the B1 network we talk about history and legacy, to get you out of that grandiose delusion that you are now accepted in white society because you can fuck a white girl. And the entire image of you being with a white girl is setting the false notion that you are safe over there. You are not. Let alone the mixing of your DNA and whatever that shit does, and the sicknesses that you're introducing into the future generations of your own DNA. It's just your matrilineal DNA is still going to, your daughter's matrilineal DNA will continue to stem from Neanderthals. It will continue to stem from all of the experience that the Caucasoid has experienced. That's your DNA strands and what they had to survive in the polar tundra of the cold. And worse, it will, by extension, extend into their philosophies. And those were the same philosophies that were used to be of a disadvantage against black people, to put black people in a position of disadvantage. And the only advantage that you feel that you have that's worth discussing is the advantage to copulate with them now. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me where I'm lying. The only advantage or wherein is your safety. So if we've debunked the article that, well, if I get with a white woman, she won't divorce me and take half my money. If we're able to debunk that, then what is the actual advantage? The only advantage, I tell you again, Brother Jeremy, is the ability to enact sexual deviancy like Epstein, is the philosophy that might equals right, that you are the ruling power and authority like the military had for so long before it was finally appealed, that sentiment that they are above reproach when it comes to their sexual infidelities. That's it. That is the executive privilege that they want to define manness or masculinity by, and I don't agree. And painting that in this image of access to white women, and damn, I know Cynthia G said this a long time ago. Now I feel like I'm finally understanding why she felt the need to even say that to you niggas, because she does not feel the need to say that to a nigga like me. Why then, when her and I are having a conversation, and we've only had a very limited number, so I don't want to make it seem like I'm claim jumping or clout chasing, a very limited number of conversations, I just don't have those problems. It seems to me that when you can jump into a circle jerk conversation with broken, dysfunctional men and have conversations about the black woman being degenerate or the black woman being unloyal and unfaithful, and the black woman is a traitor and the black woman this or that, and now that you've expanded your circle jerk from being 1 and 2 people to an entire chat room worth of people who want to chime in and have conversations about the black woman ain't shit, the black woman this and that, it seems to me that you are exactly where you need to be, which is getting some treatment, nigga. You need to get that shit out of your system. I hate that you do it in a public space, but you got every right to do so. As a veteran of the United States Army, I would say the same. You got every right to do so. Moses don't gotta like the shit. In fact, I don't even listen to half that shit. I'll be turning that shit off because I know we got work to do. The conversation stems from economics. Let's talk economics. The conversation stems from political power. Let's talk political power. The conversation stems from social progress. Let's talk socialism. But let us be clear. This is not an egalitarian society. We are in a competition against those same people you're telling black men to go get with. So you're using the spook philosophy, the spook that sat by the door, the infiltration. No, is that what you're actually? I got to have a whole conversation with myself out loud. I got to have a whole conversation because we won't be able to get it out these cats. You're advocating for the spook who sat by the door. You're on, what was that? Minister Society, or don't be a minister. It was like Raheem, and it was the juice. Don't be a minister while drinking your juice in the hood. It was like, well, I'm trying to do what they all did. I'm just trying to fuck them or something like that. The supposed pro-black that wants to sleep white or something like that. Niggas have a problem. Empowerment has an end game. At some point in that end game, it is something. What is that something? My something, if I can get very granular, is still deeply rooted in the liberation of that black man from the type of thinking that these niggas is advocating for. It is the liberation of the black man from the type of thinking that these niggas are advocating for. It is the liberation of the black man from the type of thinking these niggas are advocating for. So they think that they can escape police brutality if they learn to behave from a white woman. Oops. I mean, it's only right to say if you want to date her, the transfer of information, water hanging out at its own level, they are slowly wanting to become white women or have the rights bestowed upon them that have been bestowed upon the white woman by the white man. So it's not about the black man creating law and policy and determining what is right. No, it's still about acquiescing to and behaving according to. All right, Jeremy. It is not about the black man determining what is law. It is about acquiescing to what English and Roman law have told the black man are important. That fist punch in the face. It is not about determining what is law, not just in your household, not just for yourself. It's not about, collectively. Black men determining for themselves what is law. It is about acquiescing to what the English and what the Romans have determined to be law. Hopefully that makes sense to a nigga as to why there is a sickness that they suffer from, that they have to be liberated from. In order to listen to what they're saying, in order to even get close, you would first have to agree that white is right. You would have to, well, whenever the whites came up with those laws, then that was what niggas needed to abide by. That whenever they changed and had those new laws and those laws that were enforced and those laws that were on the book, that was right. No, nigga, an unjust law is not a law at all. Oh, I'm sorry. I just quoted Martin Luther King Jr. That's an alumni from Morehouse College, where there's predominantly LGBTQ black men who attend. I wouldn't want to be defending those. I went there too. No, I wouldn't want to defend them. Fuck y'all. Nigga, hell no. The problem is that these capers, I don't know what to call them. See, I don't got slander. I got facts, but I don't got slander. And I don't know how to feel this shit with enough fluff to get you to understand why I'm even mad at the first place. So you have these forces of deviance, and understanding the dark side of policing is a scholarly article that was published. It was talking about, amongst other things, discrimination, racial profiling, police misconduct, abuse of authority, other things that could be reviewed. But from that lens, that is the power that has black men locked up, losing their economic viability as a machine. So when it comes to law and law enforcement, it is not the black woman, but the attempt to acquiesce to the other man's law and their systems. That's all I can tell you on that. That's about as far as I can tell you. The minute that black people start assuming that because white men said it and that is a law and that it is therefore right, then now you're justifying the incarceration of the African-American men who are not abiding by what the white man just told them they must and must not do. But for the black man who says, I determine what I must and must not do, and I give myself the authority to determine what I should and should not do. Why does that not make sense? I don't know, bro. Absolutely. The acquiesce, look, and this is Brother Moses. I attended Morehouse. The whole integration, the idea about integration as a tactic and as a strategy. The idea of integration, maybe it originated long before Martin Luther King Jr. and that civil rights era, but the one that we would attribute the success of integration to is probably Martin Luther King Jr. If I'm lying, let me know. We would attribute it to him. We wouldn't be absolutely accurate. There is leaders who were even guiding the hand of what Martin Luther King Jr. was saying in a public space. In that regard, I'm talking about that same Boule type of structure or organizations that have been established for with specific race-based leadership structure. Organizations that have been designed with race-based leadership structure, like your fraternities and sororities. And they have a long-standing legacy of having black leadership, equivalent to either the Black Church or the Nation of Islam as well. When you're looking for African-American leadership inside the collective to set and determine what the social, political, and economic conditions are for any argument. Now, maybe I'm doing too much assuming that these niggas can actually have the conversation on more than just celebrity worship. Maybe I'm wrong because I assume that these niggas can have the conversation deeper than celebrity worship, but from a lens that appreciates social, political, and economic discourse and the ability to use social, political, and economic means. Not the one that says, well, white people did it this way, so therefore we have to do it this way. Not the one that says, well, the Asians have done it this way, so we have to do it like the Asians did it. Not the ones that said, well, Mexicans are doing it this way, so we have to do it that way. One that says you can take a critical analysis of what those others might be doing, but at the end of that critical analysis, you are still responsible and accountable for what you are doing and what we are doing. At the end of all of that, looking at what the other people do, you still have to stand on your own square on what black men are doing. If black men are being divorced, then what is the cause of their divorce? You can't jump to, well, the black woman is doing X, Y, and Z. The onus is still on the black man. She ain't divorced his ass for nothing. How do you complain about the matriarchy and then use matriarchal type positions, submissive or weak positions? Well, the black woman won't let us, or the black woman will run white to somebody else and do what they want to do. Is that because of the absence of your actual leadership? Are you retroactive? You are responding to what other people are doing and influencing in your life, and what they are doing in your life has a bigger influence and a bigger impact than the things that you can do for yourself. Then it's weak, and stay over there then. That's where you need to be, is getting some treatment. If what everyone else does has a bigger influence and impact on your sense of purpose and on your leadership than what you're doing, then you're the one with the problem. You can't, the black woman, how do you start to move the conversations about what the black woman won't let you do when you're talking about power? That's already an equivocation. Well, the black woman won't let is already a problem. It's already a problem. And it has to start and originate with those who feel you are the authority. Now, again, Midtown, this is Brother Moses is trying to respond. I don't even get the time to tell you what I actually think about this shit. Because first and foremost, the balance of power is shared within my own household. The whole, well, that makes you a simp and that makes you this, that, and the third. No, my wife has to have an income. We believe in intergenerational wealth to the point of when we look at our household, it has to hit above the $100,000 a year mark, or we will be at a deficit. Economic viability is real numbers. What is your actual goal as a black man? If your goal is to have that $100,000 mark, that might be a little high for some. It might be substantially too low for others. I've set the bar very low for others. $100,000. If you're talking about engineers and truck drivers and folks like that, STEM folks or doctors and whatever it is that they think that they're having a conversation with, from the black men who need to save themselves, then that bar is probably low. But for the rest of us, we just look at it for what it is. I didn't need the number $100,000. The premise is, if economic viability is what you and your family are determining to do, then it's up to y'all to get on board with what that means to you. Correct? Correct or no? When did budgeting fall out of the conversation? When did shared bank accounts or individual accounts fall off of the conversation? When did income and salary fall off of the conversation? When did, she want a purse, she want a bag. You know why that conversation is introduced into the conversation? You know why those talking points, rather, are introduced into the conversation? Because you're talking to somebody who deals with a misaligned woman. She's misaligned if that bag is more important than if you set a precedent for economic viability and this woman still comes to you and tells you that she wants a bag, then she is misaligned. Now, whose judgment is that? Do you correct that? Or do you just say, oh, now this black women are now wrong because you dated one who preferred a bag, a real literal handbag, over the metaphor, economic viability and economic sustainability? How does that not become the black man's challenge then on his management of his relationships and his interpersonal space? How does that not fall on him? It almost sounds like that feminine argument again, where women are looking for a woman to take care of them. Now you got men who are looking for I'm looking for a woman that doesn't want me to take care of her. Is that where they're going? I don't even know, man. This shit is crazy. Anyway, the forces of deviance, they understand that there is a dark side to policing, police corruption cases, prejudices, discrimination, racial profiling, misconduct, abuse of authority. Now, any of those would be what I point out as saying these are incarcerating black men far more than domestic violence. And I would pull the numbers for all of those where police are acting in misconduct, where they're breaking, search and seizure, stop and frisk. I would point to any of those and say, now those are incarcerating the hell out of black men. I would point to marijuana, since I used information that was from, let me see, let's get it one more time. He said, where's your information from? When was this study actually conducted? 2003 to 2014. So it would be the later ends of what was that medicinal marijuana wave, or that marijuana wave that incarcerated so many of our brothers for all of these years. Years upon years, we had been losing out. We had been losing out because social and political and economic viability are defended and protected by the men of those quote unquote communities. Social, economic, and political viability are defended. Number one, if we're going after the precious resources of any other business, if you try to go after Coca-Cola, well, Coca-Cola is making some sugary products. They got a syrup and they have water. So now what do you need to compete with Coca-Cola? Number one, how much water can we actually get ownership of? And then the sugary sweet substance is cornstarch mixed with something else, which means now we need cornfields and we need corn. So who would you actually be competing with? Number one, you'll be competing against the Water Reclamation Board in order to actually have a legitimate claim to the water that you would be using in order to compete with this corporation called Coca-Cola, which is an international organization. Water is the number one key element in what they sell. They sell water. Number two is this corn syrup. What are the elements of the corn syrup? Well, you do need the corn, which means the fields and farmers and all of that shit. So now you're going up against a different demographic. You can't have that conversation with these dudes because it's celebrity worship. They're just here because the social commentary gets people to say, oh yeah, I saw that. Robert Allen was with a Playboy bunny. Why is that shit even relevant who he's fucking with? Nobody cares. The idea that Robert Allen and him being with a white woman is now, here's where we can really start to get the debate going. So when you ask me to debate that shit, let me calm down a little bit. I feel like I'm way too hot. When you ask me to talk about these issues, in fact, I'm going to take this all the way off and just talk freely. You asked me to have a conversation. In that conversation, we are debating the legitimacy of no more white women. Just in case anybody missed the Sunday Rumble, it was a heated event where Taz got to come on. Somebody got out there and said no more. Antonio Brown or somebody came on and said no more white women. After Taz broke it down and gave his talking, gave his lecture, not his talking points. He did, I got to be not against him, but I got to tell you, he did drop a couple of talking points that he typically uses. That was Brother Taz. He used a couple of talking points. I'll give him that. But moving away from the fact that people use talking points or little sound bites, little snippets that people can process information in shorter spurts with, Brother O'Shea, like he does, opens up the panel. Before he does, he opens it up and says, let's go with Fantastic. Fantastic comes on and says, number one, the source. You got to check the source of the information, right? Hopefully y'all follow this logic. He comes on and his number one rebuttal is you got to check the source of the information, meaning that if the source is not credible, therefore the argument now is not credible. And he did that because he was coming on in defense of black men pursuing white women. I'll rewind. The debate, Great Rumble, is going to be about no more white women. Taz comes on and tells you exactly why no more white women. Uses a couple of talking points just to keep the audience there and engaged. Numbers jump up to almost 1,000 in the chat, 700, 800. Fantastic is on that bad boy, and he comes in and says, check the source. If the source is not credible, then the debate is lost. Why? Because Fantastic is on to defend being with or black men pursuing white women. Then they say, well, pick your starting two. Who would you want to come on and have this conversation with you? Brother Ramil comes on. He didn't get to say much. I come on for Taz. I don't get to say much. Psychopatheus comes on for Taz. He has like 2 comments, but he doesn't get to say much. And then the other dude named Silent, and he kept calling him Keith, is like interruption, running deflection. He's not allowing the conversation to move in a linear trajectory to where you can say, all right, the first thing that you came on and said was, is the source credible? I like that you bring that up Because a lot of times my argument, or the B1 argument that we have with you, is that you all use data where we don't feel the source is credible. Number one, you know we're pro-black, so we're going to tell you white folks have been against you as a defense and as a protection of their own social, political, and economic status. Here in America, they've been against you and using everything at their disposal to put you in a position of disadvantage. Now that I hear myself, I am a little bit loud. I'm gonna calm down a little bit more. They've been using everything in their power to disenfranchise you, or to their first and foremost intention was to defend and protect their own social, economic, and political status in America. That's number one, was to protect themselves. So when Brother Moses tells you that I'm pro-black, not anti-white, I understand that I don't have time to be charging and going against the white folks when it's still black folks who have an authority or a responsibility over black folks. We have the responsibility to us in the same way that they want to defend and protect their own. Now, in doing so, my critique about that other side of the fence is that they do so in a way that stands to undermine your ability to defend and protect your own social, political, and economic interests. And so with that realization, they are doing so to undermine your ability to protect your social, political, and economic interests. Then for your best interest's sake, you don't align with them. You don't make the majority even stronger by being divisive of your side of the argument. The best thing that you would be able to do is try to align with other folks who are operating from a position of power, not to align yourself in a space with people who have a weakness or a tendency to run back to the philosophies, the systems, the standards of those cultures that are here working against you and your culture. The double talk would come in because those same brothers would turn around and say, oh, nah, we're working against our own interest. And they'll use black on black crime. And so it proves the same point. Black first, if you are truly empowered by that black first ideology, then at some point you would stop with the whole killing off black folks shit. At some point, you would stop with the targeting of black. The gang violence ceases if you have black folks who learn to love and honor and respect each other. It ceases. Now you can concentrate on what you actually need to concentrate on. Economic viability. If you have more African Americans who are creating the institutions that African Americans need to thrive and to compete in a capitalist environment, now you are weaning yourself off from the ones that have to go to the other side due to no options. They are only choosing the alternative, LGBTQ and white women, because the alternative for the heterosexual African American male seems to be in their minds lost. And to have African-American men who are married men and have been married for the longest come up and have the conversation, it shouldn't be about defending the white woman. The only question should be, well, how are y'all making it work? It seemed like statistics show, again, and we'll get into it, statistics show that the black women are divorcing their husbands. Why aren't you divorced yet, Brother Moses? What were you able to do that's different? Why hasn't your black woman left you yet? Black women ain't shit. I get offended because I have a black daughter. When you say black women ain't shit, you're telling me my daughter ain't shit. I have a wife. She's a black woman. I have a mother. She's a black woman. I have nieces and I have aunties. Now, I don't even have to defend them because what I say is, but I'm still the authority in that. And the black man is still the authority in that shit. So if that niece becomes wayward, it was still on the uncles and her father and all of that shit to be the authority there, to snatch her by the back of her collar, whatever it was. It is still the black man's, not just prerogative, but the black man still has to have an educational curriculum that aligns with black thought. It can't be one that further subjugates blacks into the media, the white media, or rather, that says black people ain't shit. Excuse me. If your education or your information is one that only tends to confirm that white people are the upper of the upper, if that's how he said it, they're at the top of the top is how Fantastic said it. If that is your only premise, then you are aligned with them. You are spreading the media message that white people are great, black people are bad. So go over there, like B1 for Life said, get you a straight jacket because you're out of your mind. You are a black man. If at the bare minimum, you should look at yourself and say, I am I am the top of the top. I am the last authority. I am the key decision maker. The judge with the robe on and fake hair, fake white wig, can tell me something different. And at some point, you're going to need men. I don't know if Brother Maurice is one, but I'm going to use him for an example. You're going to need black men who say, you goddamn right. I don't give a fuck if the judge said it. I don't give a fuck if the police said it. I don't give a fuck if there was a Green Beret Navy SEAL who tried to tell me something other than what I believe to be true as the authority on that decision. I was the authority of what happened in my household. I don't give a fuck if it was the judge, if it was the police, if it was the Navy SEAL. I'm right, and I'm standing on that square. Where does that happen now? Where does that happen when you're dealing in a group of weak and hurting and broken men who are only saying the same fucking bullshit? Well, the black woman won't let me stand up like that. The white man, the judge, won't let me stand up like that. It's not about anyone external allowing you to do what your natural self as a man does. You did it. You live on it. You stand on it. Why did you do it? Because you thought it was right. That is a natural thing. It is unnatural to be so submissive to what other men and other cultures, and they have a patriarchy. They have this. Systems, institutions, or individual wise, tell me where that happens successfully. Damn, I'll be going on rants. I was trying to get in on it. So the number one thing where he started off wrong is saying, well, you're going to have to check the source. The source is not viable or not credible. So therefore, the rest of the information is not done right. So on that whole rumble, when you rewind it and you finally see it and you finally hear what Brother Moses says, by the end of that rumble, you'll get to the point of where Brother Moses brings out CDC information, data that's talking about the same premise he starts with and invalidates it to prove the point that data is not your friend. These same people who have been acting with one agenda, and you pointed out 97% of them stay married to within their own race, but you're pointing out that black men need to change from that. You're saying black men shouldn't stay in their own race. They should go outside. Congrats. That's what's up. And you're giving the premise that it is better for us to date outside of our race than to recreate ourselves. I'm telling you, now this is what Moses says, you're saying that out of cowardice because you see that man in a robe as a genuine authority in your life, and you don't see that ever changing. You never project yourself into the position that says, I'm right. And so the image that you are purveying or that you're holding on to is one that says black men are weak and inferior, and they can put on cotton. They can put on, I don't give a fuck if it was a black dress with a white wig. Once they put that black dress on and that white wig on, they are the authority in your life. They're either going to have to bow down to that point, or this, well, pro-blacks are always talking about the white man, You're either going to have to say, yes, there is a system. It's not the person who puts on that robe and that wig who has the power over you, but that there is an entire system. But you don't want to do that because now you're actually saying some pro-black shit, ain't you? Kilting. So they don't want to have the conversation about a root cause. Excuse me, real quick. Social, economic, and political. Social, economic, and political. Social, economic, and political. They're correlated, interchangeable. One is driven by the other, is driven by the other, is driven back to the one. Your position or your status in society is going to be determined community-wise or in the big scheme of things by your politics and by your economics. Gain control of your politics is gaining control of your social. Gaining control of your economics is gaining control of your politics, is gaining control of your social. All three of these are working in tandem: your social, political, and economic status. That is American. Brother Moses will tell you that that is not our ideology. And they're going to have to debunk the fuck out of that. And the minute that they try to, it comes to this point, Brother Danubian and Midtown. Y'all probably the only two still rocking with me here, but that's all right. This information had to be out anyway. Number one argument that they're going to have is, and what's wrong with acquiescing to the whites? That's it. I'm going to stop right there. Let me say it again. That's their question. They're going to ask us, other black men, what's wrong with acquiescing to the whites? Or how do you say it in a way that makes sense? What's wrong with going along to get along? What's wrong with buck dancing, the circle jerk? What's wrong with white men being empowered as my boss, my employer, as maintaining my livelihood? What's wrong with being dependent upon the government and its systems for a disability check? What's wrong with playing the game? What's wrong with, this is the majority and this is the lay of the land? What's wrong with a black man trying to fit in and do what they tell us to do? That's number one, is their argument, is what's wrong with, and that's what they'll tell you is doing the right thing. You're in America, do what they tell you to do. Am I lying? I mean, if you know that we've had about 10 senators that are African American, even less when it comes to actual state governors. Peace, salute, Craig Harper. If you know that our numbers of political leadership at the upper echelon has not been black, and if you trace it back at every senator, every senator, congressman, every governor, the top of the top, as he likes to put it, and look at all of them, and see how many of them were white men, and then start right there. And what you're pro-black, you're talking about the white man this and the white man that, of the system this, the system that. I'm telling you, they put in places as a priority the defense and the protection of their social, political, and economics. So for black men to have the conversation on anything but social, political, and economics, for them to be celebrity worshiping, for them to be looking at those outliers rather than having the conversation on the core. The core of us are relationships that are black. So what do we need to do to strengthen that relationship dynamic if what you say is true, that black women are divorcing us? Where do you start there? It starts with who's the authority? Who is the authority in the black household or in that black relationship? You see what they have to do again? When you do all of that, the natural next answer would be the black man. Or at the very minimum, if you ask Brother Moses, it would be as so determined by the relationship, because the shared authority approach, that kind of works for me. I don't have that same traditional lens of a relationship where, well, I am because I said I am. No, sometimes my wife economically has to kick in. I need that. I need all of that. I need all of that. So it's moving to a position of codependence. That's true, because we have bigger goals. 100,000 is a benchmark. Without that, we are operating at a deficit. Maybe somebody else's number is bigger than that. $100,000 wouldn't do shit for them. Maybe $100,000 is unreasonable for somebody who has never touched a $100,000 in their year. So that seems like, look, Brother Moses is talking about 100,000. That seems a bit uppity for me. Wherever you might fall, the point stands. In their own household, they may determine. In my household, me and my wife go back and forth. Look, it won't be 50-50. Sometimes it's 49 and 51. Sometimes she's the 51, I'm the 49. Most of the time, though, I operate with like 100% autonomy. Most of the time. Only time my wife has ever raised her voice or did something that was so outside of what I would consider a behavioral norm to where I had to really raise my voice was probably for about 5 minutes. And where she raised her voice was probably about 5 minutes in an entire year. So what percentage is that 5 minutes? No, it has to be something deeper than that, brother Craig, that they are avoiding. It has to be a blatant inferiority complex that makes them say, when you do that and you break it down like we just did in that linear approach, defending and protecting the social, economic, and political status. See, now it's not just about you. What they're saying is, as an individual black man, I have to protect myself. And then they go to these spaces where save yourself black men are popular to be amongst a whole bunch of weak and broken men who are having a circle jerk, blaming everything but the black men, and thus saying, black men, you have to save yourself from something because you are a target. So we go on to those spaces where they're at to tell them, yes, you are a target, but the person shooting shots at you, the person on the other side of this warfare you think you are, is not that black woman. Yeah, but she's using the system against us. Then your problem then is still going to be with the system that you haven't created, and there's no other way around it. There's no other way around it. Your problem can't, look, you can even be one of those pro-blacks who only focus on what the white man has created as a part of their system to defend and protect their social, economic, and political status. You can be with those pro-blacks if you want to. Brother Moses will tell you, I'm not. I'm not there. I am pro-black because I am for black people, not against those whites. I understand that they got to do what the fuck they got to do over there. This is a competition when what they're doing starts to intercede or cross over into my lane. Now I am responsible for fighting back against what they're doing. If they put out a policy that does not align with my policy, I'm not the one to just, well, they made it. It's a law. I got to do it now. The answer is no. They can make policies that says marrying or dating or even having babies with 12-year-old girls is okay in America. I don't have to follow that policy. That policy is against my own principles. It's not something that comes from my Afrocentric way of thinking. It comes from some Roman shit. It comes from some Greek shit. That's not my philosophy. It's not the way that my principles. That shit's over there. You have to first align with what they're doing and think what they're doing is right for you to start following that type of ideology. Same sense in the creation of laws. If there is a law that's created, an anti-miscegenation law that they were creating, it is a law for them, a law that they are creating to defend and protect their social, economic, and political status. And we get lost on these sidebar ass conversations. We get very lost when the essential element of the conversation is to recognize that most races, most civilizations date within and marry and copulate within their own. And while others are putting up their defenses and protections for themselves to find a greater degree of advantage in society, and doing so with the direct assault and attack on your masculinity, on the black woman's femininity, and reversing those to give the black man more femininity and the black woman more masculinity, and doing it through foods and vaccinations and media. For the first, we can't even have the conversation that moves from image to now let's talk about the foods and the Asian. Is there a diet that would probably be better for us than this European diet? We understand that Europeans have different conditions that their bodies have to account for, right? They have different skin, right? They have not the skin itself. Some people, well, you said they have different skin. Whatever it is that creates their skin, creates whatever proteins and whatever the shit in their skin that reacts and responds a different way to even things like the sun, for example. So for them to actually survive, they have to do things according to what their bodies are doing. So you're up north in the very polar cold. You need a diet that's going to help you, probably a little bit more red meat or bloody animals and shit. If that's what it is that they have to eat in order for them to survive, that's on them. In a more tropical or equatorial environment, you may have an African American, for example, who lives in, let's say, South Carolina, may not need all of that meat or animals and things, but starches might do, might the vegetables and things, because the sun is beaming down a little bit more directly and it's growing the earth, it's growing vegetation. How do plants and things grow? Well, they convert the energy from the sun in a process called photosynthesis. Nigga too smart, but niggas already know that shit. Those plants and things might be the things that help you absorb more sun since you're going to be in it. So for us, we might need that more vegetable-based diet. If we are not, if we are choosing to eat the same evils that the same that a European eats, then we are trying to acclimate our bodies, our DNA, the thing that's reproducing even our skin cells, to accommodate a change in our environment that you ain't even changed under yet. Your mind may be European, nigga, but you're still a nigga. You don't have to eat like them. And when I say your mind might be European, I don't even think your mind is European. And this would be a direct shot across the brow at any of those Manosphere brothers. I think that the part of your mind that is possessed by that, like Brother Nubian says, evil, is the part of your mind that you are the most comfortable operating under. Out of cowardice. The part of your mind that agrees with those white folks that does all of that, and the system does all of that, and all of that shit that they like to espouse on the back end, when you really tell them to break it down, what is their real dysfunction as men? Why are they really afraid? What are you really afraid of? What is it that you have to save yourself from? And when you start breaking down those tenets, they run because they are comfortable there. They are comfortable with the feeling of acceptance and inclusion, and that prevents them from being, in their minds, looked at as a competitor. And I would tell them that first and foremost, they are wrong. You can date white, but it does not make you safe. My points for them would still be the same ones. You are equally susceptible dating outside of your race to those things that you said on that show you are most afraid of, which is the lost power over your economic viability. Because they're concerned about being divorced or broken up with, it tells me that their locus of control is around, well, if I get with a black woman, she has to do what I tell her to do and be happy. Black women have experienced a trauma unknown to any other group of women that I could see. And maybe I need to do more research. But what the black woman has survived, what she has consumed, like protein or starch, what she has consumed, and that she has consumed, how it has informed her DNA and the way she thinks. She's way too strong for that weak ass shit, bro. She's way too strong for that. So if you conflate her strength and her pushback, her standing up against whatever role or whatever submissive thing that you want to force down upon her, and that's where you're at, then it's better that you either become LGBTQ or, in this sense, go on over there with the white folks. Because you're no good to us. You're no good to your own family. You would be no good to the generations that precede you, because you're not going to outcompete them on economics. You're not going to out-military them, and you're not going to out-politic them as being a mixed breed trying to run in a circle that is 97% not mixed. You can get access to that 3%, but will access to that 3% give you the ability to fight back against that 97% when they start defending and protecting their social, political, and economic interests? No. LGBTQ, now they got something. They got it all the way at the Supreme Court to make the LGBTQ a protected class. Not swirlers. Which one would be worse to align with? I don't know. I don't have to align with either. But which one is more detrimental to the image of the African American male? It would be the one that is so confused that they no longer even want to reproduce what looks like and acts like them. It would be the image of the black man that is so confused he no longer wants to reproduce the image, the likeliness, the DNA of himself. Now that conversation again goes on the other side. The LGBT community, they at least came out and said it's not going to be about reproduction and we ain't trying to have babies and all of that shit. They at least came out and said it's 100% sexual perversion or sexual deviancy. They are about who they can lay with and all of that shit. They are over there doing what they want to do. But let me see a dog produce anything other than a dog, and then they can win me in that argument. They want to date white. I'm not the dick police. But in a debate, you're going to have to do a little bit more than equivocate to the LGBTQ and say, well, look what they're doing. No, black man, you are accountable for your actions, your household. And once you start to create a surplus, then you can be accountable for your family. And if your surplus is greater than that, then you can create for your neighbors. Now, of those neighbors, would I stand to defend that white woman or the gay black man? What Brother Moses tells you would be the gay black man over the white woman. Peace and black power.